Welcome, Sojourners, to the Women's Leadership Mindset series. My name is Teresa Page. I am your host and looking forward to spending these next few moments with all of you. We have a lot of work to get done on today, but first, allow me to invite you to connect with me by subscribing to my website and YouTube channel. Connect and follow me on LinkedIn, and always feel free to contact me directly via email at teresakpagellc@outlook.com. So what is our goal? Well, as an author, speaker, coach, and mentor, my mission is to help professional women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose through the mediums of leadership development and coaching services. However, the Women's Leadership Mindset series is a new initiative intended to spotlight powerful women leaders and how they serve the world through their professions and purpose. So with the goal to help women realize their unfulfilled dreams and re-energize the leaders they always were, this platform is designed to enhance, empower, educate, equalize, and even emancipate, as our special guests share their entrepreneurial stories, provide valuable resources, and guidance in a caring, professional, and impactful manner. So, let's get down to business. Hi there, leaders. Listen, in case you have missed it, I am so excited about announcing the new edition of my book, My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor. In addition to its companion piece, the reference guide workbook. I'm truly excited about being able to do this. I did first publish the book in July of last year, but just being able to communicate this message, there's been so many more lessons that I have learned, which has prompted me to kind of update some of the information, move around some pieces in the book to the point where it needed to be republished as a new edition. And so I'm really excited about that. This book is basically staying true to its overall purpose, which is to demonstrate how God's love empowers women to lead, to create, and to generate wealth in the fullness of our equality, purpose, as well as in our business. So this new edition, it stays true and it emphasizes that love is that ultimate success factor that advocates for women to recognize their value, to pursue their purpose, so that we are capable of impacting our communities as well as our sectors of industry. And as the first book, this one, it combines my personal experiences, some faith-inspired principles, as well as some practical insights to guide women through some of their challenges, self-discovery, as well as leadership development, and even for those who may find themselves in the world of entrepreneurship. And so, I think this time around, it's really just not about the book and the workbook, but I'm bringing together this book, this workbook, as well as the Love the Success Factor Women's Leadership Conference, which I'll probably talk about a little later because we have an event that's coming up in December that I would really love to be able to have a gathering before the end of 2025 as we look towards 2026, but I'll talk a little bit about that a little later. Today, I really just wanted to maybe just share a little bit out of the book. And I think I'll probably do this for a little while, especially leading up to the conference. But I'll probably just read just little snippets of the book and maybe just talk about or reflect on this experience of writing this new edition. So listen, hang with me. I'm going to read a little piece from the book, My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor, the new edition. I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 1, which is entitled Love unveils the woman I already am. Purpose under pressure. So let's get into it. I'm just going to read a few pages and then we'll talk on the other side. So this portion of the chapter is called a flashback. I want you to join me in a flashback. Picture it. March 2015. I'm attending a National Women's Month event in a small venue in downtown Atlanta. In that room was a sea of women from all walks of life, ethnicities, generations, continents, and industries. Every woman in that room was a leader in some capacity, and we took in quite a bit of information related to business. However, what overshadowed that event for me was one particular question that kept coming to the floor for an answer. The question was, with all the wonderful things that women can do, there still feels like there is a force holding us back. What is it? What is it? This question was posed to the room and guest panelists at least twice by two different women. Each time, the typical responses of low self-esteem, negative self-talk, lack of self-care, abuse, inequality, sexism, classism, and racism were thrown out as answers. But none of them would stick. We all recognize that these are symptoms of oppressive systems, but none of them satisfied the inquiry. We left the event energized, but that question was left in the air without a consensus, conclusion, or an answer. This event and the unanswered question became the catalyst that flipped my life totally upside down. For amid the debate, it became clear to me that my purpose would be dedicated to helping women take the lid off of their capacity. I have waited all of my life for this moment. From a little girl, I knew I was destined to enterprise, to build, to awaken, and to empower. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, to create businesses, to set my family free. And though I've dabbled in business here and there with different interests, I did not have the assignment or the motive that required incorporation of interconnected ventures. I had the fire, but the fire of my desire had no reason to thrive without a cause. So when the Lord showed me my cause and I finally understood what I was made for, you better believe I took off running to make it happen without hesitation. While I was driven by genuine excitement, I was also driven by fear. It seemed like my dreams had a contract on my head because I was getting older and I was afraid of running out of time. All of my former attempts to grasp this large vision I could see off in the distance failed. And I did not want to die taking an unfinished assignment back into eternity. But what could I tell the Lord if He asked me why I did not fulfill what He sent me to do? That is a conversation I do not want to have. For I'm not altogether confident that my salvation alone could protect me. I think most of all, I was afraid that I had broken a promise to my young self. For that chubby little girl knew with a resolved assurance that this dream was already paid for. She knew she had direct access to the entire treasury of heaven, and everything she needed to make her life come true was already enclosed inside of her. She knew that in her years to come, that the favorable combination of perfect storms and encounters with purpose assassins were the hired navigators to lead me to my appointed place. She knew I was strong enough to walk out this call and could get up after every hard hit. She knew I would submit my bruises to divine healing so I could stay in the right mind, body, and spirit. She knew that the advancement of my years would not count as an indictment, but would prove to be a season of ripening where I would be the rarest, most sweet, most beautiful, and prophetically on time. Well, after watching all that I was building fall through my fingers in a year's time, I found out what it meant to activate the Lord's purpose prematurely. The comedy in all of this is that I later learned that the Lord counted on my zealousness to jump head first into my mission just so he could set me apart to teach me how to fulfill the commission he has put upon my life. It turned out that in order for me to help unscrew the lid off of women's capacity, I needed to unscrew the lid off of my own. It turned out in order to help women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose, my own mindset had to have an overhaul. It turned out that in order for me to know about true leadership, I had to learn about the Lord's kingship, his intention for mankind through dominion, and how to master real life circumstances as an emerging leader. Learning these lessons was not easy, and it took years. For every amazing thing I learned about the Lord as a king on one hand, I experienced an equally unsavory moment on the other. Passing through both heaven and hell at the same time is the best way I can describe this particular part of my life. Navigating the dichotomy of this season forced me to grow up from the hurts of my past, grow up in my thinking, grow up in my health, grow up in my finances, grow up to face my accountabilities, grow up to understand the difference between the Lord's provisions and his promises. The impact of these years was so consequential and effective that if I had to give this process a name, I would call it the diamond effect. And here's why. So I think I'm going to pause right here. So thank you for listening to just a portion of the section of Flashback, which is part of chapter 1 of Love the Success Factor. This chapter again is titled Love Unveils the Woman I Am, Purpose Under Pressure. I remember just kind of thinking back to when I was not only just writing this as part of my book, but when I was first crafting this with my Women's Leadership Conference that I wrote out in 2021. It had a different name back then, but I think this section was still titled the same, Love Unveils the Woman I Already Am, Purpose Under Pressure. When I first created this part, I actually had it as the last section of the women's conference. But when I decided to write this book, I decided that it needed to be brought to the front. Because even though I'm going to talk about love and leadership, all of this had to the conference, the book, and everything else I've created since maybe the turn of 2020 or even before then, or even, like I said, even before then, it took a particular process. You don't just wake up knowing a thing. Life has to teach you about it. And even if you study certain things by reading, understanding somebody else's concept, doing research, and all those other kind of things, it doesn't stick until you actually have to walk through it. And there's always a starting point, I think, leading into a season of purpose development. And for me, it was this women's conference or this women's event that took place in Atlanta in March of 2020 or 2015. And as I mentioned, it was a catalyst. The question that was posed on the floor, as far as what is the force that's holding women back? I mean, that was crazy. I remember that experience. I remember sitting in that room, and we were tight in that room. It was a very small space, but there were so many women in that room from different walks of life. And that was a part of the event that stumped us all. It stumped us all because we could not, even though society has told us one thing, suppress women in so many ways, in so many different ways, in all the areas that I mentioned earlier, whether it was low self-esteem, whether it was inequality, sexism, classism, racism, all of the above. Yes, all of these are contenders. They're symptoms of oppressive systems. But to answer this question, none of those responses worked. It just didn't work. And this was maybe my pivot point as far as in my life, as far as understanding what is my purpose. And at this time, I'm already a professional woman. I already have my master's degree, I have my bachelor's, I have my master's, I've had a certain set of experiences, I've had a certain set of skill at that particular time already at this point in my life. You're talking about this was only 10 years ago. So I've been already in the workforce for a long period of time. I thought that the revelation of my purpose to help women take the lid off of their capacity. I thought that I had everything that I needed. But after looking back 10 years, just to be this far ahead, looking back to that time, I understood that I didn't have everything that I needed. There was a certain understanding that I had to have to understand that oppression, why it could have been a force to hold us back, it's not necessarily what's holding us back. It is what we need a revelation of. What women need more of a revelation of. And what you're going to find in this book is that love is that revelation. And even though I'm just reading a small part, and I'll probably read snippets here and there, love is that revelation. It is not the forces that hold us back. It is the revelation of love, which is our enablement. It is our superpower that helps us to do all things, not some things, but all things in our personal, professional, and in our spaces, in whatever space. It is beautiful. Love is beautiful for every situation. All of our intense realities, all of our sweet moments, all of those times where we don't have an answer. Love is intelligent. It is dominant. It is all knowing. Love is what helps us to win. So you're going to hear more about my journey in in this book. But I just wanted to share a little bit, and yes, I left it as a cliffhanger as far as what would I call this moment of development is the diamond effect. And I moved forward in the book to actually list out the elevations that I had to walk through. And this first chapter is purpose under pressure. It's probably the longest chapter in the book because when we are finally faced with what we were made for, I think certain experiences that we've had prior to helps. It does add, it gives us certain skill sets, certain abilities, and all of those things like that. But I think the weird thing about purpose, I think, is that once it's revealed to you what you're made to do, you then got to go through a process. You have to burn off what's no longer necessary. Some things have to be corrected. Some of our erroneous thinkings and understandings may have to be shut down and rebuilt. We may have to be shut down and rebuilt. It's basically almost a reconstruction to give us the knowledge, the understanding, the education, the fortitude, the wherewithal, the strengthening, the healing, so that we can be effective, that we could be that effective conduit that is going to execute this purpose in the earth for a particular people, a region, or a territory. We're living in a time where leadership is questionable. We're living in a time where people's motives are questionable. We're living in a time where it seems criminality is being rewarded. And that truth is can be fluid, but not so. I don't care what time that we live in. When it comes to purpose, purpose is true and effective. And there's no way to skirt your way around. You can't go around. You can't buy your way through. You can't get somebody's book on 10 steps, do their 10 steps. No, you still have to, even if you have someone to support you and you have other guidance, you cannot cheat the process of purpose development. And that's what this first chapter is focused on. I talk about it in about 7 elevations, but this particular section of this book took years. And I don't even say that my development is over, but to produce what I've already been able to produce and to put out into the world took years. So I don't care how advanced we get in our technology or AI or whatever. The reality is that when we are sent into the world, we are sent in the world to execute a particular purpose that's going to answer a particular question for our generation and the generations to come. And why we already come packaged with certain giftings and abilities, Those giftings and those abilities have to be developed. They have to be challenged for authenticity, so that when we do step out into the world, finally execute what we were sent here to do, while we may make mistakes, while we may have some bumps and lumps, and while we may need to go back into the lab and try it again, we have the wherewithal to do all of that and to get back out to doing our work. So I can't wait to share with you probably a little bit more about my experience in the Diamond Effect. So I'll probably do that maybe in a different upcoming episode. But listen, as I mentioned, this book is now available. My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor is now available on Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon. But as I mentioned earlier, this is not just about the book. This is not just about the workbook. If you get that and you have that, it's awesome. I believe it'll get you to where you need to be, especially if you're a woman or even if you're a man that's looking how to apply love to your to all of your intense realities. How to apply love as a skill set, as a competency into your world. The book and the workbook will do just fine. But listen, I am cordially inviting all of you to join me 10 a.m. on Saturday, December 13th of 2025 in Cisco WebEx for Love the Success Factor Women's Leadership Conference. This is where we're actually able to get into the book, walk across its pages to really break down what love empowers us to do. In conjunction and in alignment and parallel with leadership. So I'm going to put all this information in the bio. I want to say thank you for listening. And as always, here's to the journey. And let's move forward.